Chapter 1. The Ashen Exile. The sky above New Terra burned a sickly green, streaked with the contrails of departing Khazor ships. The human colony, once a vibrant tapestry of domed habitats in hydroponic fields, lay in ruins. Smoke curled from shattered structures, the air heavy with the acrid tang of scorched metal. Jaxen Creed stood atop a crumbling watchtower, his weathered face lit by the fading light of a distant star. His gray eyes, sharp as a blade, tracked the last of the Khazor fleet vanishing into the void. The Galactic Coalition, led by the insectoid Khazor, with their clicking mandibles and cold compound eyes, had deemed humanity unfit for stewardship of their worlds, citing their wars and fractured unity. The verdict: exile to the barren fringes of the Orion Arm. Jaxen's calloused hand gripped his depleted pulse rifle, its charge long spent. Below, his people, survivors of the purge, salvaged what little remained. Children clung to tattered blankets, faces smudged with ash, while elders whispered prayers to forgotten gods. The Khazor had stripped them of ships, weapons, and hope. But Jaxen's gaze caught a glint in the rubble, a data shard etched with the symbol of Sol, humanity's lost cradle. It hummed faintly, a pulse of energy that stirred something deep within him. This was no mere trinket. It was a relic of the first expansion, when humans built marvels that rivaled the stars. He descended the tower, boots crunching on broken glass. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Amara Kane, met him at the base, her dark eyes hollow with exhaustion. "They left us nothing, Jaxen," she said, voice low. "No ships, no comms, just this wasteland." Jaxen knelt, brushing dirt from the shard. It pulsed warmer, almost alive. "Not nothing," he murmured. "This is a key. To what? I don't know. But it's ours." Amara frowned, her braided hair dusted with ash. "A key won't feed us or fight the Khazor." Jaxen stood, his jaw set. "It's a start. Gather the others. We move at dawn." The survivors, barely 100 strong, rallied under Jaxen's command. They trekked across New Terra's cracked plains, guided by the shard's faint signal. It led them to a buried vault, hidden beneath a dune. Inside, they found a cache of ancient human tech, a partially intact AI core, schematics for fusion drives, and a holographic map of Sol's lost colonies. Jaxen's heart raced. This was no accident. Humanity's ancestors had prepared for this day, hiding their legacy from those who would erase them. As night fell, Jaxen addressed the survivors, his voice steady despite the weight of their despair. "The galaxy thinks we're dust. They're wrong. This shard, this vault, it's proof we were never small. We'll rebuild. We'll fight. We'll take back what's ours." A child clutching a worn toy looked up at him. "Will we go home?" Jaxen knelt, meeting her gaze. "We'll make a new one. Together." The shard glowed brighter, as if in agreement. Chapter 2. The Ghost Signal. The desert wind howled across the wastes of New Terra, carrying grains of sand that stung like needles. Jaxen Creed led his ragtag band through the dunes, the data shard's faint pulse guiding them toward an unknown destination. The survivors moved in silence, their steps heavy with hunger and fear. Jaxen's broad shoulders bore the weight of their trust, but doubt gnawed at him. The shard's signal was growing stronger, but what if it led to nothing? What if hope was just another cruel trick? Amara walked beside him, her rifle slung across her back. "You sure about this, Creed?" she asked, her voice barely audible over the wind. "That shard could be a glitch, or a trap." Jaxen glanced at her, his face half hidden by a tattered scarf. "It's all we've got. You saw the vault. Our people built things the Khazor can't even dream of." Amara snorted. "Built? Past tense. Look at us now. Scavengers on a dead world." Jaxen didn't answer. He couldn't. Instead, he focused on the shard, its warmth seeping through his glove. By midday, the signal led them to a jagged canyon, its walls carved with strange angular runes. At its heart stood a derelict structure, half buried in sand, a relic of the first expansion. Its hull, though rusted, bore the faint outline of a human crest, a stylized sun. Jaxen's pulse quickened. This was no outpost. It was a ship. The survivors gathered around as Jaxen and Amara pried open the hatch. Inside, the air was stale, lit by flickering emergency lights. Consoles lined the walls, their screens cracked but faintly glowing. At the center stood a cylindrical chamber, its glass clouded. Jaxen wiped it clean, revealing a dormant AI core, its circuits pulsing faintly. The shard in his hand flared, syncing with the core. A voice, calm, human, and ancient, echoed through the chamber. "Welcome, inheritors of soul. I am Eos, guardian of the Ember Project." Jaxen froze. The survivors murmured, some dropping to their knees. Eos continued, its voice steady but tinged with urgency. "This vessel, the Aurora, was hidden to preserve humanity's legacy. The Khazor and their allies sought to erase you, but you are not forgotten. The Ember Project holds the key to your rebirth." Amara stepped forward, skeptical. "What's the catch? Why hide this for centuries?" Eos's core pulsed. "The Coalition feared your potential. Your ancestors built weapons, drives, and minds that rivaled their gods. They buried this truth, but you stand here now. Will you reclaim it?" Jaxen's mind raced. The Aurora was no warship. It was a seed, a spark to reignite humanity. But the Khazor would hunt them. He turned to his people, their faces a mix of awe and fear. "This is our chance," he said. "Not just to survive, but to fight, to show the galaxy who we are." A young engineer, Rylan Pierce, stepped forward, his eyes bright. "I can get her running, Commander. Give me time." Jaxen nodded. "Do it. We're not running anymore." As Rylan worked, a distant rumble shook the canyon. Jaxen climbed to the surface, spotting Khazor drones on the horizon. They'd been tracked. Time was running out. Chapter 3. The spark ignites. The canyon trembled as Khazor drones descended, their sleek, beetle-like forms glinting under New Terra's green sky. Their scanners swept the dunes, hunting the human survivors. Jaxen Creed crouched behind a boulder, the data shard burning hot in his pocket. Below in the buried ship Aurora, Rylan and his team worked feverishly to revive the ancient vessel. The AI, Eos, guided them, its voice calm but urgent. Jaxen's heart pounded, not from fear, but from the weight of what they'd found. The Aurora wasn't just a ship, it was a war chest, packed with tech that could shift the galaxy's balance. But only if they survived the next hour. Amara slid beside him, her rifle raised. 6 drones, maybe more. They're locking on our heat signatures. Jaxen peered over the boulder, his mind racing. The drones were fast, armed with plasma lances that could melt steel. The survivors had only salvaged rifles and grit. "We need a diversion," he said. "Buy Rylan time." Amara's eyes narrowed. "You're not suggesting—" "I am." Jaxen tapped his comm. "Rylan, how long?" 10 minutes, Rylan's voice crackled. "The core's waking, but the drives need alignment." Jaxen turned to Amara. "Take half the group, lead the drones west. I'll hold the canyon." Chapter 4. The Veil's Edge. The Aurora tore through the void, its fusion drives leaving a trail of plasma that shimmered against the black. Jaxen Creed sat in the command chair, the data shard now embedded in the ship's console, its glow synced with Eos's core. The AI had plotted a course to Sol's Veil, a region cloaked by a nebula's radiation, uncharted by the Khazor and their allies. The survivors, now 68 after losses in the canyon, crowded the ship's hold, their faces a mix of hope and dread. Jaxen felt the weight of their gazes. He was no hero, just a man who refused to let humanity fade. Amara stood at the nav console, her fingers dancing over holographic displays. "Eos says we're 2 days out," she reported, "but the Khazor won't let us go quietly. Their scouts are already sniffing our trail." Jaxen nodded, his jaw tight. The Aurora was fast, but its weapons were offline, and its shields were patchwork. "Can we lose them?" "Not in open space," Eos interjected, its voice echoing through the bridge. "But the Veil's radiation will mask our signature. You must trust the path." Rylan, covered in grease from the engine bay, chimed in. "Trust? This ship's a relic. I'm amazed it's still flying." Jaxen shot him a look. "Keep it that way, Pierce." Days passed in tense silence. broken only by the hum of the drives. Jaxen walked the ship, checking on his people. A medic tended to the wounded, her hands shaking from exhaustion. A child clutched a toy ship, whispering about Earth, a myth to most. Jaxen knelt beside her, forcing a smile. "We're going somewhere better," he said, though he wasn't sure he believed it. As they neared the Veil, the nebula's crimson glow filled the viewport, swirling like blood in water. Sensors flickered, overwhelmed by radiation. Then, a Khazor frigate emerged from the haze, its hull bristling with cannons. Alarms blared. Amara cursed. "They found us!" Jaxen gripped the console. "EOS, evasive maneuvers. Rylan, get those weapons online." The Aurora banked hard, dodging plasma volleys. EOS's voice remained calm. "Weapons require a power reroute, diverting from shields." "Do it," Jaxen ordered. The ship shuddered as a hit grazed them. In the hold, screams echoed. Jackson's mind raced. He couldn't lose them now. Ryland's team worked frantically, sparks flying as they patched ancient circuits. A pulse cannon hummed to life, and Amara fired, clipping the frigate's wing. It veered off, but more ships appeared on sensors. "We can't fight them all," Amara shouted. "Then we run," Jaxen said. "EOS, full power to drives. Get us into the Veil." The Aurora plunged into the nebula, its hull groaning under the strain. Radiation scrambled the Khazor's sensors, and the pursuit faded. Ahead, a planet emerged. Lush, blue, impossible. Sol's Veil wasn't a myth. It was real. EOS's core pulsed. "Welcome to Haven, the last bastion of Sol." Jaxen stared at the viewport, hope battling fear. Haven was a new start, but the Khazor would come, and when they did, humanity would be ready. Chapter 5. The Heart of Haven. Haven's surface gleamed under a violet sky, its forests alive with bioluminescent pulses that mirrored Jaxen Creed's heartbeat. The Aurora rested on a rocky plateau, its hull scarred but defiant. The survivors, 68 men, women, and children, worked tirelessly, transforming their camp into a stronghold. Jaxen stood at the edge, the data shard warm in his pocket, its glow syncing with the planet's rhythm. Haven wasn't just a refuge, it was a crucible, forged by humanity's ancestors to rekindle their legacy. But the Khazor were coming, their sensors already probing the nebula's edge. Inside a hidden cave, the survivors uncovered the Ember Forge, a vast underground complex of humming consoles and robotic arms. Holographic schematics flickered, starships, plasma weapons, neural amplifiers, all stamped with Sol's crest. Jaxen's breath caught. This was what the Khazor feared, humanity's buried potential. Ryland Pierce, the young engineer, knelt by a console, his eyes bright with awe. "This could build an armada," he said. "Fusion drives, singularity cores, tech the Coalition can't match." Amara Kane, her arms crossed, scowled. "Tech's useless if we're dead. The Khazor won't give us time to build." Jaxen turned to EOS, the Aurora's AI, its core glowing in a nearby alcove. "What's the Forge's capacity? Can we arm ourselves before they hit?" EOS's voice was steady but grim. "The Forge can produce a warship in weeks, but the Khazor fleet will arrive in days. You must activate Haven's defenses, orbital turrets hidden in the nebula." Jaxen nodded, rallying his people. Miners hauled ore from caves, engineers revived the Forge's systems, and scouts mapped turret locations. Zara Quinn, the medic, tended the wounded, her calm voice a lifeline. But fear simmered. At night, Jaxen heard murmurs, doubts about his plan, about their survival. He gripped the shard, its pulse urging him forward. This was their stand. By dawn, the Forge hummed, producing drones and rifles. EOS trained pilots via neural sims, their minds linked to ancient combat protocols. Jaxen sparred with Amara in the camp, their blades flashing under glowing trees. "You're betting everything on this place," she said, parrying his strike. "What if it's not enough?" "It has to be," Jaxen replied, sweat beading on his brow. "We're not just fighting for us. It's for every human they erased." Before she could answer, alarms screamed. Khazor scouts breached the Veil, their beetle-like ships slicing through the nebula. Jaxen sprinted to the Aurora, his people scrambling to defensive positions. From the bridge, he saw the enemy's lights, predators closing in. Amara manned the weapon's console, her face grim. Turrets are firing, but they're just scouts. The real fleet's coming. Jaxen gripped the shard, its heat like a second heart. Then we wake Haven. EOS, activate the grid. Rylan, get that warship ready. The plateau shook as turrets roared, their plasma tearing into the scouts. The survivors cheered, but Jaxen's eyes stayed on the horizon. The Khazor would return stronger. Haven was humanity's last hope, and he'd burn it all to keep it alive. Chapter 6. The Forge of Haven. Haven's violet skies shimmered above a sprawling forest, its bioluminescent leaves casting an eerie glow over the Aurora's landing site. Jaxen Creed stood on the plateau, the data shard now a steady pulse in his pocket, its energy resonating with the planet's hidden secrets. The survivors, 68 souls, battered but unbroken, set up camp, their faces alight with a fragile hope. The air was thick with the scent of alien flora, sweet yet unsettling. Jaxen's boots sank into the soft earth as he surveyed the horizon, where jagged peaks loomed like sentinels. Haven was no mere refuge. It was a fortress built by humanity's ancestors to outlast their erasure. EOS, the Aurora's AI, guided them to a hidden facility beneath the plateau, accessed through a tunnel lined with glowing runes. Inside, they found a vast underground complex, the Ember Forge. Consoles hummed with dormant power, and robotic arms hung frozen over assembly lines. Holographic schematics flickered, starships, weapons, even neural enhancers, all bearing the mark of Sul. Jaxen's heart raced. This was the legacy the Khazor feared, a spark to reignite humanity's fire. Rylan Pierce, the young engineer, dove into the systems, his hands trembling with excitement. This place could build a fleet, he said, eyes wide. Fusion cores, plasma arrays, tech centuries ahead of the coalition. Amara Kane, ever skeptical, crossed her arms. And how long before the Khazor find us? We barely escaped their scouts. Jaxen met her gaze. We don't hide, we prepare. EOS, what's the timeline? The AI's core pulsed. The Forge can produce a functional warship in 3 weeks, provided you supply raw materials. But the Khazor are amassing a fleet at the Veil's edge. They will arrive in days. Jaxen's jaw tightened. 3 weeks was a fantasy. They had to act now. He rallied the survivors, assigning tasks: miners to extract ore from Haven's caves, engineers to repair the Forge's systems, and scouts to map the planet's defenses. A young medic, Zara Quinn, organized a makeshift hospital, her steady hands a beacon of calm. But fear lingered. At night, Jaxen overheard whispers, doubts about his leadership, about their chances. He pushed them aside, focusing on the shard's warmth. It felt like a promise. As days passed, the Forge roared to life. Rylan's team crafted drones and plasma rifles, while EOS trained pilots using neural sims. Jaxen sparred with Amara, their blades clashing in the camp's clearing, honing skills for the fight ahead. But on the 5th night, alarms blared. Khazor scouts breached the Veil, their ships slicing through the nebula. Jaxen stood on the plateau, watching their lights flicker like predators' eyes. The survivors looked to him, their hope fragile. We've been underestimated before, Jaxen said, his voice carrying over the wind. Let them come. We'll show them what humans are made of. The shard pulsed, and the Forge's hum grew louder, as if Haven itself was waking. Chapter 7. The Siege of Sol's Veil. The Khazor armada descended like a swarm of locusts, their ships blackening Haven's violet sky. Jaxen Creed stood on the plateau, the Ember Forge's drones buzzing overhead, their plasma cannons primed. The survivors had worked miracles in days, fortifying the camp, arming the Aurora, and activating Haven's ancient defense grid, a network of orbital turrets hidden in the nebula. But the Khazor fleet was vast, its flagship a hulking dreadnought that dwarfed their efforts. Jaxen's hand rested on the shard, its heat a steady anchor. This was no longer about survival, it was about defiance. Amara coordinated defenses from the Aurora's bridge, her voice sharp over the comms. Turrets online, but they won't hold long. Creed, we need you up here. Jaxen sprinted to the ship, dodging plasma blasts that scorched the earth. Inside, Eos's core glowed, its voice calm amid the chaos. The dreadnought is targeting the forge. If it falls, Haven is lost. Jaxen strapped into the command chair. Rylan, status on the new warship? Operational but untested, Rylan shouted from the forge. We're calling her Soul's Wrath. She's got teeth, but she's no match for that monster. Then we hit hard and fast, Jaxen said. Launch everything. The Aurora and Soul's Wrath soared into the fray, supported by a swarm of drones. Haven's turrets unleashed barrages, tearing through Khazor frigates. Jaxen piloted the Aurora, weaving through enemy fire, his hands steady despite the screams of his crew. Amara fired the ship's cannons. Each hit a spark of human vengeance. But the dreadnought loomed, its lances carving gashes in Haven's surface. A direct hit rocked the Aurora, and Jaxen smelled burning circuits. A young pilot slumped at his station, blood pooling. Stay with me, Jaxen roared, redirecting power to shields. Eos rerouted systems, keeping them aloft. Below, Zara's medics dragged wounded to safety as the camp burned. Jaxen's mind flashed to the child from New Terra, her toy ship now ash. This was why they fought. Soul's Wrath struck next, its plasma arrays slicing the dreadnought's flank. Rylan's voice crackled. We've got their attention. Draw them to the nebula's core. It'll scramble their sensors. Jaxen banked the Aurora into the nebula, the dreadnought in pursuit. Radiation flared, blinding the enemy's targeting systems. Haven's turrets focused fire, and Soul's Wrath delivered a crippling blow. The dreadnought listed, venting atmosphere. Cheers erupted, but Jaxen's relief was short-lived. Sensors showed more ships incoming. A second wave, larger than the first. Amara grabbed his arm. We can't hold them all. Jaxen's eyes locked on the shard, now blazing. Eos, is there more in the forge? Something we missed? The AI paused, then spoke. There is one weapon, the Ember, a singularity device. It could end this war, but its cost is catastrophic. Jaxen's heart sank. A weapon to save them or doom them. He looked at his crew, their faces etched with resolve. Prepare it, he said. We end this now. Chapter 8. The Flame Eternal. The Khazor's second wave blackened Haven's orbit, their ships a relentless tide. Jaxen Creed stood in the Ember Forge, the shard now embedded in a console linked to the singularity device. The Ember, its core pulsed like a dying star, its power both salvation and ruin. Eos's voice was grave. The Ember will collapse the Veil's nebula into a singularity, destroying the Khazor fleet. But Haven may not survive the shockwave. Jaxen's crew gathered, their faces gaunt but defiant. Amara's eyes burned. We've come too far to lose everything now. Rylan, hands stained with grease, nodded. The Soul's Wrath can amplify the Ember's range, but someone has to pilot her to the detonation point. Jaxen knew what it meant, a one-way trip. He looked at his people, the child who dreamed of Earth, Zara tending the wounded, elders who'd seen too much loss. I'll do it, he said, voice steady. Get everyone to the Aurora. Evacuate to the fallback coordinates. Amara grabbed his arm. Not you, Creed. We need you to lead us. You'll lead them, he said, meeting her gaze. You always could. She cursed but nodded, tears in her eyes. The survivors boarded the Aurora, while Jaxen climbed into Soul's Wrath. The ship's cockpit was cramped, its screens flickering with warnings. The shard, now linked to the Ember, glowed like a sun. Eos's voice followed him. You carry Saul's legacy, Jaxen Creed. Humanity will remember. The Khazor fleet closed in, their dreadnoughts pounding Haven's defenses. Soul's Wrath launched, weaving through plasma fire. Jaxen's hands danced over the controls, his heart steady despite the odds. The nebula's crimson swirls filled the viewport, a cosmic storm raging around him. He activated the Ember, its core humming with apocalyptic power. The Khazor flagship targeted him, its lances grazing the ship. Alarms screamed, but Jaxen pushed forward, guiding Soul's Wrath to the nebula's heart. Below, the Aurora fled, carrying his people to safety. Jaxen's comm crackled with Amara's voice. You better make this worth it, Creed, he smiled. Tell them we were never small. The Ember detonated, A singularity bloomed, a black maw swallowing the Khazor fleet. Haven trembled, its skies fracturing, but the aurora escaped the shockwave. Jaxen's vision blurred as Sol's wrath disintegrated, the shards light the last thing he saw. He felt no fear, only pride. Humanity would rise. Epilogue. Months later, the survivors settled on a new world, guided by Eos. Amara led them, her voice carrying Jaxen's fire. They built cities, ships, a future. The galaxy whispered of the ember's flame, of humans who defied erasure. On a hill, a monument rose, a shard etched with Sol's crest, inscribed with Jaxen's name. The child from New Terra, now grown, placed a toy ship at its base. "We're home," she said. The stars watched, silent but no longer dismissive. Humanity's ember burned eternal.